Hello, good morning. Okay, continuing with the laws of Lashon Hara. So the case we're going to be talking about today, it's not to do with Rechilus, but you overhear somebody say, I'm going to beat up Steve, or I'm going to go denigrate Steve, I'm going to go steal from him. What do? Okay, so we're on Hilchas Rechilus, Klal Tes, Seif Gimel 9:3. We're not going to explain a case that doesn't have to do with Rechilus. Kegon, Im Shamala Echad, Sha'amar, you hear somebody say, Im Efka Leploni, if I run into so-and-so, call him Steve, I run into Steve, but Makom Ploni, in such and such a place, Ekenu Acharfenu Vagdefenu, I'm going to hit him, I'm going to beat him up, or I'm going to scream at him, I'm going to denigrate him, Sheshama Mimena, or you hear from this guy, Shebetzon Lahaziziko Be'inyin Mammon, or he's going to steal from him, or damage something that he owns. Tali Bazeh, this is what it's dependent on. If the person who's talking, he's that type of person, and you can take him seriously, he's done this thing in the past, he's done this to other people, or he's a type of person that does not exaggerate, right? He's not just blowing off steam. And for sure he's going to do what he says. You have to tell the person, you have to tell Steve that this person is about to beat him up. Maybe he can protect himself, or that he can avoid the embarrassment or damage. But you have to make sure that you don't lack all of the conditions from above. So if you listen to our previous year, I believe that was number 87, but just to review them, the conditions are you have to contemplate what the person says is forbidden. It's going to do something bad. You're not allowed to exaggerate. Your intent has to be pure to help the person. There's no other way to save the person without telling him. And there won't be damage to the person that you're speaking about, or undue damage. We'll talk about that in a second, actually. That's going to be a little bit discussed in the next if. But the Chavetz Chaim adds in the bottom here that if you believe that without telling Steve that this guy wants to beat him up, if you believe that by going to the guy himself that you can give him rebuke and you can convince him not to do it, it's better to do that. Better to convince the guy himself that he shouldn't beat Steve up, because you shouldn't go around beating people up. But if you know he's the type of person that's not going to listen to you, then you go tell Steve. Okay, halacha daled. Va'afta davar zehu mitzvah rabba. Even though this is a big mitzvah, right? You're lo saman al dam recha. You're protecting somebody. It's a big mitzvah. Ubechal hava shalom hu. It's considered to making peace. Afal pikein yesh lizar me'od shelo lemahir lesaper eni kazeh ki im achashis bonen levia eni shali desipur yishmor hashemeas atzmo sholelech l'makom ploni b'yechidi penikena o yechfena oso ploni. I'll translate in a second. O etz acheres ki yotz bezeh sha'ay dezeh tistalek haktata shebenahim. He says you have to be very sure that when you're telling Steve and warning him, that Steve is going to heed your advice and he's not going to go to the place where the person plans to beat him up. Because sometimes, or many times, even though this is a because many times what happens is you go tell Steve that so-and-so wants to beat him up, and Steve's just going to get angry, and Steve's going to go and fight with this guy, and there's going to be an even bigger fight. So before you go run and tell Steve that someone plans to beat him up, you have to contemplate a lot and think, what's the best way? The goal is to make there not be a fight. That's what you want. So if by telling Steve he's going to avoid the place and there's not going to be a fight, that's good. But if you know telling Steve he's just going to go and he's going to start up even more and he's just going to beat him up first, that is, then you shouldn't tell him in that case. Okay? So again, when you hear somebody say that he's going to beat up somebody, if you have all of the 5 conditions, which we mentioned, then you have to tell the person, and only when it's going to not cause a fight. But if it's going to cause a fight, that in our case, Steve would go and start up with the guy, then you can't tell him. And for review of those 5 conditions, please check our last class and have a beautiful day.